Welcome to the world's countries from us here at Boring Travel and Geography for Sleep, and to our long, slow journey through all the countries of the world, one by one, without any particular order. In this series, we take our time, moving carefully through geography, history, culture, and those little details you might need to know, and quite a few that you will probably never need at all. This is not a fast-moving travel guide filled with excitement and recommendations, but a quiet and steady presentation of facts and context, so you can simply listen, follow along, and perhaps even drift off to sleep while you learn something new. Today, we turn our attention to Switzerland, a landlocked country in the heart of Europe, known for mountains, neutrality, and precision, but also home to a great deal of history, linguistic variety, and regional diversity. Over the course of this episode, we will explore where it is, what it is like, and how it became what it is today. We will look at its geography and borders, the people who live there, the languages they speak, and the political system that governs them. We will move slowly through its long history, from the earliest human presence to the modern state, before looking at life in Switzerland today and what a visitor might expect. As always, while I aim to be as accurate as possible, mistakes can happen. If you hear something that you know is wrong, or if you are from Switzerland or know the country well, I would appreciate it if you left a comment to help set the record straight. That way, over time, these episodes can become not just a place for slow geography, but also for shared knowledge. Switzerland is located in the central part of the European continent, without any coastline at all, entirely surrounded by other countries. In geographical terms, it is landlocked, which means it has no direct access to the sea or ocean. If you look at a map of Europe, you will find Switzerland roughly in the middle, nestled among some of the highest and most famous mountain ranges on the continent. It lies to the north of Italy, to the west of Austria and Liechtenstein, to the south of Germany, and to the east of France. The border with France runs for hundreds of kilometers, stretching from the Jura Mountains in the northwest to the shores of Lake Geneva in the southwest. The border with Germany lies mainly along the Rhine River in the north. To the east, the border with Austria is shaped partly by high mountain passes, while the small Principality of Liechtenstein sits along a short stretch of Switzerland's eastern edge. The southern boundary with Italy winds its way through the Alps, crossing some of the most dramatic and elevated landscapes in Europe. If we look at length, the country's longest border is the one it shares with Italy, which is over 700 kilometers long, a result of the way the two countries' territories interlock among the mountains. The shortest border is with Liechtenstein, measuring only a few dozen kilometers. The presence of 5 neighboring countries is unusual, and it reflects Switzerland's position at a crossroads between different parts of Europe, both in terms of geography and culture. Although Switzerland does not touch any sea or ocean, it has several large lakes along its borders. Lake Geneva is shared with France, Lake Constance is shared with Germany and Austria, and Lake Maggiore is shared with Italy. These bodies of water give Switzerland a form of shared shoreline with its neighbors, even if it has no access to the open sea. Switzerland covers a total area of about 41,285 square kilometers. This makes it a relatively small country by global standards, ranking somewhere around 135th in the world in terms of size. To give a sense of scale, it is smaller than countries such as the Netherlands or Denmark, but larger than nations like Bhutan or Belgium. Within Europe, it is considered a medium to small-sized state, but its varied terrain means that the land is not evenly used or populated. A significant portion of the surface area is taken up by mountains, lakes, and forests, leaving less flat, arable land than the total number might suggest. The country's official name is the Swiss Confederation. In Latin, it is Confederatio Helvetica, a name you will often see abbreviated as CH on international codes, vehicle registrations, and the internet domain .ch. The use of Latin for the official name is intentional, as it avoids favoring any one of the country's national languages. Latin, being a neutral and historical language, serves as a unifying choice in a country with four official languages and strong regional identities. The name Switzerland itself comes from the canton of Schwyz, one of the founding members of the original Confederation in the late Middle Ages. Over time, the name of this single canton came to be used to refer to the entire country, both in domestic and international contexts. This process of a regional name becoming the name of a state is not uncommon in history, but in Switzerland's case, it also reflects the gradual nature of its formation as a loose confederation of self-governing areas rather than a single unified kingdom or empire from the start. The highest point in Switzerland is the Duferspitze, a mountain in the Monte Rosa Massif, which rises to an elevation of 4,634 meters above sea level. It is located in the canton of Valais, right on the border with Italy, and is part of the Pennine Alps, a range that contains some of the most famous peaks in Europe. The Duferspitze is named after Guillaume-Henri Dufour, a Swiss general and topographer who played an important role in mapping the country in the 19th century. The summit is permanently covered in snow and ice, and climbing it requires significant skill, preparation, and favorable weather conditions. The lowest point in Switzerland is much less dramatic. It lies along the shores of Lake Maggiore, at a place called Brissago, in the canton of Ticino, where the lake's surface sits at about 193 meters above sea level. This is in the far south of the country, very close to the Italian border, in an area with a milder climate than most of Switzerland, and where palm trees can grow outdoors. The contrast between this low-lying, almost Mediterranean environment and the high alpine peaks is one of the features that gives Switzerland its varied landscapes and climates within a small area. The difference in elevation between the country's highest and lowest points is more than 4,400 meters, which is a large vertical range for such a small country. It means that Switzerland contains everything from permanent glaciers and high-altitude tundra to lowland valleys where the climate supports vineyards, orchards, and subtropical gardens. This variation has influenced settlement patterns, agriculture, transport routes, and even cultural differences between regions. Switzerland may be landlocked, but it is rich in freshwater, with a network of rivers and lakes that play an important role in its geography, economy, and history. The longest river that flows entirely within Switzerland is the Aare, which runs for about 295 kilometers. It begins in the Bernese Alps, fed by glaciers, and winds its way through several cantons, including Bern, before eventually joining the Rhine River. The Aare is known for its distinctive turquoise color in many stretches, caused by finely ground rock particles carried by glacial meltwater. While the Aare is the longest river wholly inside the country, the Rhine itself, one of Europe's major rivers, also passes through Switzerland. It forms part of the border with Germany in the north, and its source is in the Swiss Alps. Another important river is the Rhone, which begins in the Rhone Glacier in the canton of Valais, flows through Lake Geneva, and continues into France before eventually reaching the Mediterranean Sea. The Ticino River, which flows south into Italy, and the Inn River, which flows eastward into Austria, show that Swiss waters drain into several different seas: the North Sea, the Mediterranean, and even the Black Sea Basin, depending on where the river starts. The largest lake entirely within Switzerland is Lake Neuchâtel, covering an area of about 218 square kilometers. However, the largest lake that is at least partly in Switzerland is Lake Geneva, which the country shares with France. On the eastern side of the country, Lake Constance is shared with Germany and Austria. These lakes are important not only for scenery and recreation, but also historically as trade and transport routes before modern roads and railways were built. Many Swiss towns and cities are situated along rivers or lakes, taking advantage of the relatively flat land and access to fresh water. The rivers have also been harnessed for hydroelectric power, which is a significant source of Switzerland's energy. The combination of high mountains, abundant rainfall, and glacial melt makes the country one of the most water-rich in Europe. Switzerland's story of independence is not tied to a single moment of separation from a colonial ruler or occupying power, as is the case for many modern states, but rather to a gradual process of forming and strengthening a loose alliance of regions over several centuries. The origins of the Swiss Confederation are often traced back to the year 1291, when representatives from the mountain communities of Uri, Schwyz, and Unterwalden formed a defensive pact. This was intended to protect their mutual interests and independence from the influence of larger powers, particularly the Habsburgs, who were expanding their control in the region. Over time, more cantons joined this alliance, and through a combination of military victories, negotiated agreements, and political arrangements, the Confederation increased both its territory and its autonomy. The Peace of Westphalia in 1648, which ended the 30 Years' War, is often considered the formal recognition of Swiss independence from the Holy Roman Empire, even though the country had already been operating largely on its own for many years. From that point onward, Switzerland maintained a high degree of self-governance, and over the centuries it developed its policy of neutrality, avoiding participation in major European wars. The modern federal state of Switzerland, as we know it today, was officially established in 1848 after a brief civil conflict known as the Sonderbund War, which led to the adoption of a new constitution and a more centralized but still highly federal system of government. Because we will go into the details of these events in the history section later, we will leave it here for now. Switzerland's independence was not the result of a single dramatic declaration, but rather a long and steady evolution from a loose alliance of communities to a recognized and stable sovereign state. The flag of Switzerland is one of the simplest and most recognizable national flags in the world. It features a bold, white cross with arms of equal length, centered on a square red field. Unlike most national flags, which are rectangular, the Swiss flag is almost perfectly square in its proportions. This shape makes it stand out among the flags of other nations, and is one of the reasons it is so easily identifiable. The only other sovereign state with a square national flag is Vatican City. The design of the white cross on a red background has medieval origins. It can be traced back to the 14th century, when Swiss soldiers used a white cross as a field sign during battles, often sewn onto their tunics. Over time, the red background became associated with this symbol, and by the 19th century it had been formally adopted as the national flag. The current version was standardized in 1889. The cross is widely interpreted as a symbol of freedom, honor, and neutrality. Its association with protection is reinforced by its close resemblance to the emblem of the International Committee of the Red Cross, which was founded in Geneva in 1863. The Red Cross emblem, in fact, is simply the reverse of the Swiss flag, a red cross on a white field, and was chosen in honor of Switzerland's role in its creation. The red background itself does not have a single, universally agreed symbolic meaning, but it has long been part of the heraldic tradition in the region. It provides a strong contrast to the white cross, making the design easy to see from a distance, whether on a flagpole, a military banner, or in modern times on sports uniforms and official documents. Because of its simplicity and clarity, the Swiss flag is also widely used in tourism and branding, often as a shorthand for precision, quality, and reliability, values that Switzerland is keen to be associated with. But at its core, it remains a national emblem with roots deep in the country's medieval past, a simple design that has become one of the most enduring symbols in Europe. Switzerland is officially multilingual, with 4 national languages recognized at the federal level. These are German, French, Italian, and Romansh. The distribution of these languages reflects the country's position at the meeting point of several major European cultural and linguistic regions, and also its federal structure, where each canton has considerable autonomy in deciding official matters, including language use. German is the most widely spoken language in Switzerland, used as the main language by around 2/3 of the population. More precisely, what people speak in daily life in the German-speaking areas is usually not standard German as it is taught in schools and used in formal settings, but various dialects collectively known as Swiss German, or Schweizerdeutsch. These dialects can differ significantly from region to region, and sometimes even from one valley to the next, which can make them difficult for speakers of standard German from other countries to fully understand. French is the main language in the western part of Switzerland, an area often referred to as Romandie. About 1/4 of the population speaks French as their primary language. The variety of French spoken here is very close to the French of France, with only minor regional differences in vocabulary and pronunciation. Italian is spoken in the southern canton of Ticino and in parts of the canton of Graubünden. It is the mother tongue of about 8% of the Swiss population. The Italian used in Switzerland is essentially standard Italian, but with some local expressions and a few loanwords from German and French. Romansh is the least common of the national languages, spoken by less than 1% of the population, mainly in certain valleys of the canton of Graubünden in the east. It is a Romance language with several distinct dialects, descended from the Latin spoken in the region during the Roman Empire. Romansh has official status in its home canton and is recognized at the federal level for communication with Romansh-speaking citizens. This linguistic diversity means that official documents, federal laws, and many public services are provided in at least the 3 main languages, German, French, and Italian, and sometimes also in Romansh. It also means that crossing from one canton to another can feel, linguistically, like crossing an international border. Switzerland has a population of roughly 8.9 million people, according to recent estimates. This places it somewhere around the 100th position in the world's population ranking, making it neither among the most densely populated small nations, nor among the largest by total numbers. The population is unevenly distributed, with most people living on the Swiss plateau, the relatively flat and fertile area between the Jura Mountains in the northwest and the Alps in the south and east. This region contains the country's largest cities, many towns, and a significant amount of industry and infrastructure. The mountainous areas, particularly the high alpine regions, are much less populated, with small villages often separated by long stretches of forest, pasture, or rugged terrain. These areas have traditionally been centers for farming, forestry, and seasonal tourism, rather than large-scale settlement. The distribution of the population is also influenced by language, with the German-speaking areas being the most populous, followed by the French-speaking regions, then the Italian-speaking areas, and finally the Romansh-speaking communities. Switzerland's population has been steadily growing over the past decades, due largely to immigration. The country has a significant foreign-born population, with around 1/4 of residents holding foreign nationality. Many of these are from other European countries, particularly Italy, Germany, Portugal, and France, as well as from countries outside Europe. When compared to other countries of similar population size, Switzerland has a relatively high population density, at more than 200 people per square kilometer on average. However, because much of the land area is mountainous and sparsely inhabited, the inhabited zones can feel more crowded than the overall density suggests. The country's population is also aging, with a growing proportion of people over 65 years of age, a trend common across much of Europe. This shift has implications for healthcare, pensions, and the workforce, and is one of the demographic issues that Swiss policymakers follow closely. Switzerland has no state religion at the federal level, but its cantons, the member states of the Swiss Confederation, have considerable autonomy, and in some of them certain Christian denominations still receive official recognition or support. Historically, Switzerland has been shaped by both Roman Catholicism and Protestantism, and the division between the two is still visible in some aspects of cultural and political life. The Reformation, which began in the early 16th century, took root in parts of Switzerland, while other areas remained Catholic, leading to a lasting religious diversity within the country. Today, the population is roughly split between these two major Christian traditions, with Roman Catholics making up just over a third of the population and members of various Protestant churches, most often the Swiss Reformed Church, making up slightly less than that. In recent decades, there has been a notable increase in the number of people identifying as having no religion. This group now represents a significant share of the population, particularly among younger generations and in urban areas. There are also minority religious communities, including Muslims, who make up around 5% of the population, many of whom have roots in migration from the Balkans or Turkey. Smaller groups include Orthodox Christians, Jews, Buddhists, and Hindus, most of whom are concentrated in cities. In terms of broader demographics, Switzerland is home to a variety of ethnic and cultural backgrounds. While the majority of the population is ethnically Swiss, shaped by centuries of living in the German French Italian or Romansh-speaking regions, immigration over the past century has brought in people from across Europe and beyond. Italians form one of the largest immigrant communities, a presence that has left a clear cultural imprint, especially in cuisine and architecture in some areas. This combination of historical religious diversity, growing secularism, and cultural variety from immigration means that Switzerland's social fabric is complex. The federal system allows cantons to manage many aspects of cultural and religious policy themselves, which means that the balance between traditions and modern pluralism can vary noticeably from one part of the country to another. The currency of Switzerland is the Swiss franc, abbreviated as CHF, from the Latin name Confederatio Helvetica franc. It is one of the few European currencies not replaced by the euro, and it remains a strong and stable unit of exchange, widely regarded as a safe haven currency in times of global economic uncertainty. The franc is divided into 100 centimes in French, Rappen in German, centesimi in Italian, and raps in Romansh, reflecting the country's linguistic diversity. In terms of its value, the Swiss franc typically trades close to parity with the euro, though the exact exchange rate fluctuates. Against the US dollar, it is usually worth slightly more, though this too changes over time. Switzerland's reputation for financial stability and careful fiscal management has helped maintain the franc's strength, and the Swiss National Bank plays an active role in currency policy to prevent excessive volatility. The Swiss economy is one of the most developed in the world, with a high GDP per capita and a broad base of industries. Banking and finance are internationally recognized sectors, with Zurich and Geneva serving as major global financial centers. The country is also known for its manufacturing, especially in precision engineering, luxury watches, and high-quality machinery. The pharmaceutical and chemical industries are another major pillar, with multinational companies headquartered in Switzerland producing medicines and medical technology exported worldwide. Agriculture plays a relatively small role in terms of GDP, but Swiss farming is heavily protected and subsidized, focusing on quality rather than quantity. Dairy farming, especially in mountainous regions, produces milk for cheese varieties like Emmental and Gruyere, which are well known far beyond Switzerland's borders. Tourism is also an important part of the economy, driven by both winter sports in the Alps and summer activities such as hiking and lake tourism. Switzerland's infrastructure, including its extensive railway network and well-maintained roads, supports both domestic travel and international tourism. The combination of a strong currency, diversified industries, and political stability makes Switzerland's economy highly resilient, though its reliance on exports means it remains sensitive to changes in global markets. The capital of Switzerland is Bern, a city located in the western part of the country, in the German-speaking region. Bern sits along a bend of the Aare River, with the historic old town perched on a sandstone ridge almost surrounded by water. While Bern is the political center of the country, it is not the largest city, and it has a more relaxed pace compared to the financial and cultural hubs elsewhere in Switzerland. The city is home to around 130,000 inhabitants, and the wider metropolitan area brings the total to over 400,000. Bern's status as the capital dates back to the mid-19th century, when Switzerland adopted its modern federal constitution in 1848. The choice was a compromise. Bern was centrally located and not as dominant as Zurich or Geneva, making it acceptable to different linguistic and regional groups. The city houses the federal parliament, government offices, and embassies, but it also retains much of its medieval architecture, with covered arcades, towers, and a famous clock known as the Zittglocke. The largest city in Switzerland is Zurich, with a population of about 440,000 in the city proper and over 1.5 million in the metropolitan area. Zurich is a major center for finance, business, and higher education, with a reputation for high living standards and an active cultural scene. Geneva, in the far west near the French border, is another important city, with around 200,000 residents in the city itself. It is known internationally as the headquarters for numerous organizations, including parts of the United Nations and the International Committee of the Red Cross. Lausanne, also on Lake Geneva, is home to the International Olympic Committee. Other significant cities include Basel, on the Rhine in the northwest, a key location for trade and home to a strong pharmaceutical industry, and Lugano in the Italian-speaking canton of Ticino, which has a more Mediterranean feel. Each of these cities reflects the linguistic and cultural diversity of Switzerland, while together they form a network of urban centers spread across a relatively small but varied landscape. Switzerland is a federal republic, meaning that political power is divided between the national government and the country's 26 cantons, each of which has its own constitution, parliament, and considerable autonomy. The federal government is based in Bern and operates under a system designed to balance representation among the country's different regions and language groups. One of the most distinctive features of Swiss politics is its system of direct democracy. Citizens regularly vote in national, cantonal, and municipal referendums on a wide range of issues, from changes to the constitution to local matters such as infrastructure projects. This means that political decision-making is not confined to elected representatives, but involves the population directly, often several times a year. The executive branch at the federal level is not headed by a single president in the way many countries are, but by a 7-member federal council. Each member leads a government department, and together they act as a collective head of state. The presidency rotates annually among the councillors, and the president's role is primarily ceremonial, representing Switzerland abroad and chairing council meetings, without greater executive power than the other members. The Swiss parliament consists of two chambers: the National Council, which represents the population proportionally, and the Council of States, which represents the cantons. Laws must be approved by both chambers, reflecting the federal structure and the importance placed on regional balance. Switzerland is well known for its policy of neutrality, a stance it has maintained for centuries, avoiding participation in armed conflicts between other states. It is not a member of NATO and only joined the United Nations in 2002, although it participates actively in many international organizations and serves as host to numerous diplomatic and humanitarian institutions. This political system, combining strong local autonomy, consensus-based governance, and direct public participation, is often cited as a reason for Switzerland's stability and high level of trust in its institutions. Switzerland is consistently ranked among the countries with the highest living standards in the world. Life expectancy at birth is around 84 years, which places it near the very top globally. This is a reflection of a combination of factors: high-quality healthcare, a generally healthy diet, widespread access to clean water and sanitation, and a safe living environment. The country's healthcare system is well developed, although it is also among the most expensive in the world, with mandatory health insurance required for all residents. In terms of economic indicators, Switzerland has one of the highest GDPs per capita in the world, regularly appearing in the top 10. This high level of wealth is supported by a diversified economy with strong industries in finance, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, and high-value agriculture, as well as tourism. Unemployment rates are generally low, and income levels are among the highest anywhere, although the cost of living, especially housing, healthcare, and certain services, is also very high. On the Human Development Index, Switzerland ranks near the very top, often first or second globally. The HDI measures not only income, but also life expectancy and education levels. Switzerland's position reflects a society with widespread access to quality education, stable political institutions, and extensive infrastructure. Education is available in multiple languages, and the vocational training system is well regarded internationally. While the overall picture is one of prosperity and stability, there are also challenges. The high cost of living can be a strain for people with lower incomes, and housing in major cities can be scarce and expensive. Income inequality is less pronounced than in some countries, but it still exists. Environmental sustainability is also a focus, as the country balances economic activity with the need to preserve its landscapes, biodiversity, and water resources. Taken together, Switzerland's living standards are the result of a long-standing commitment to stability, a strong economy, and careful governance. But they also rely on continued adaptation to demographic, environmental, and global economic changes. When people search for information about Switzerland online, the topics that come up most often tend to reflect both its international reputation and its practical appeal for travelers, investors, and students. Among the most common search themes are questions about visiting the country, such as the best time to travel, how expensive it is, and which cities or mountain areas are worth seeing. Many people are interested in the famous Swiss Alps, with searches about ski resorts, hiking trails, and scenic train journeys like the Glacier Express or the Bernina Express. Switzerland's economy also draws attention, particularly in areas related to banking, finance, and its strong currency. There are frequent searches about opening bank accounts, understanding the Swiss franc, and the country's role as a financial center. Questions about working in Switzerland are also common, with people wanting to know about salaries, job opportunities, and the cost of living. Food and drink appear regularly in search trends, especially traditional dishes like cheese fondue, raclette, rösti, and of course, Swiss chocolate. There is also curiosity about the country's watchmaking industry, with well-known brands and luxury timepieces being a frequent subject of searches. On the cultural and political side, searches often focus on Switzerland's system of direct democracy, its neutrality in international affairs, and its high rankings in quality of life indices. People also look up facts about its multiple official languages and its unique place in the heart of Europe, surrounded by 5 countries. Seasonal searches can include topics like the Montreux Jazz Festival, the Geneva Motor Show, or major winter sports events. In short, the online interest in Switzerland reflects a blend of its scenic landscapes, economic reputation, cultural traditions, and distinctive political system. Now that we have looked at Switzerland's fact, it's time to move on to its history. The earliest traces of human presence in what is now Switzerland go back thousands of years, to the Paleolithic period, when small groups of hunter-gatherers moved through the area following game and seasonal resources. Archaeological finds, such as stone tools and animal bones, show that these early people adapted to the challenging landscape, using river valleys and lower slopes of mountains for shelter and movement. By the Neolithic period, permanent settlements began to appear, particularly around lakes. One of the most remarkable archaeological features from this time is the series of prehistoric pile dwellings. Wooden houses built on stilts along the shores of lakes like Zurich, Geneva, and Neuchâtel. These structures, now recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, give us a clear picture of how early communities managed life in a landscape where water, fertile land, and forest resources were closely connected. During the Bronze and Iron Ages, the area saw the development of farming, metalworking, and trade networks that linked the Alpine region to wider Europe. By the time of the Late Iron Age, the territory was inhabited by Celtic tribes, most notably the Helvetii, whose name later inspired the Latin term Confederatio Helvetica. These tribes farmed, traded, and occasionally fought with their neighbors, and they left behind evidence in the form of fortified settlements and elaborate grave goods. The arrival of the Romans in the 1st century BCE marked a major change. In 58 BCE, Julius Caesar famously defeated the Helvetii near Bibracte, in present-day France, preventing their planned migration westward. Switzerland became part of the Roman Empire, integrated into the provinces of Gallia Belgica, Rhaetia, and Maxima Sequinorum. The Romans brought roads, towns, baths, and administrative systems, and they encouraged trade across the Alps. Towns such as Aventicum, now Avanches, served as important regional centers. Roman control lasted for several centuries, but by the 3rd and 4th centuries CE, the empire was under increasing pressure from migrating peoples and internal instability. Germanic tribes, including the Alemanni and the Burgundians, began moving into Swiss territory. Over time, these groups settled permanently, blending with the remaining Gallo-Roman population and setting the stage for the cultural and linguistic divisions that still exist in the country today. After the decline of the Western Roman Empire in the late 5th century, the lands that now make up Switzerland were divided among several emerging powers. In the west, the Burgundians established a kingdom that would later be absorbed into the Frankish realm. In the north and east, the Alemanni settled in what became the German-speaking parts of Switzerland. Over the following centuries, these regions were incorporated into the expanding Frankish Empire under the Merovingians and later the Carolingians, linking Switzerland's history closely with that of what is now France and Germany. Following the fragmentation of the Carolingian Empire in the 9th century, the territory passed through a series of political changes, eventually becoming part of the Holy Roman Empire. Power was exercised on a local level by feudal lords, monasteries, and bishops, each controlling their own lands. The church played an important role, with monasteries such as Einsiedeln and St. Gall becoming centers of learning, manuscript production, and agriculture. The strategic location of the Alpine passes, such as the St. Gotthard, the Simplon, and the Great St. Bernard, gave the region significance far beyond its size. Control over these routes meant control over trade between northern and southern Europe, and it brought both wealth and conflict to those who held it. By the High Middle Ages, powerful noble families, most notably the Habsburgs, sought to extend their influence over these lands. It was against this backdrop that the origins of the Swiss Confederation emerged. In 1291, 3 rural communities, Uri, Schwyz, and Unterwalden, formed a defensive alliance to protect their autonomy against outside powers, particularly the Habsburgs. This pact, traditionally seen as the founding of Switzerland, was intended to ensure mutual aid and defense rather than to create a centralized state. Over the following decades, other towns and regions joined the Confederation, often after conflicts with external rulers. By the 14th and 15th centuries, the Old Swiss Confederacy had grown into a loose alliance of cantons, bound by treaties but maintaining considerable independence. Military successes, such as the victories over the Habsburgs at Morgarten in 1315 and Sempach in 1386, strengthened the Confederation's reputation for resilience and military skill. These victories also encouraged more regions to join, and by the end of the 15th century, the Swiss had established themselves as a significant force within the Holy Roman Empire, albeit one that operated largely on its own terms. By the late 15th and early 16th centuries, the Old Swiss Confederacy had expanded to include 13 full cantons, along with several allied territories. The Confederation's military reputation was well established, and Swiss mercenaries were sought after across Europe for their discipline and skill. However, the growing sense of unity was still balanced by strong local independence, and there was no single central government as we would think of today. The formal recognition of Swiss independence came in 1648, with the Peace of Westphalia, which ended the 30 Years' War. While the Swiss Confederacy had been functioning autonomously for centuries, this treaty marked the point at which the Holy Roman Empire officially acknowledged its sovereignty. The Confederation's position in the heart of Europe, combined with its rugged terrain, made it a natural buffer between larger powers, and over time, this helped shape its political identity. The Reformation in the 16th century had already left deep marks on Switzerland, dividing some cantons along religious lines, Protestant in places like Zurich, Bern, and Geneva, and Catholic in others such as Lucerne and Uri. These divisions occasionally led to armed conflict, but the cantons also learned to coexist under a shared framework that allowed each to maintain its own religious practices. This local autonomy was one of the strengths of the Confederation, even if it sometimes made collective action more difficult. Switzerland's policy of neutrality began to take clearer shape after a series of conflicts in the early modern period. Following heavy losses in foreign wars, particularly the defeat at Marignano in 1515, the Swiss states increasingly avoided entanglement in the military affairs of their neighbors. This gradual withdrawal from external conflicts evolved into a long-term diplomatic stance, reinforced after 1815 at the Congress of Vienna, when the major European powers formally recognized Swiss neutrality as part of the post-Napoleonic settlement. By maintaining neutrality, Switzerland avoided the large-scale destruction suffered by many of its neighbors in later wars. This position also allowed it to serve as a host for international diplomacy and humanitarian efforts, laying the groundwork for its modern role as the home of organizations such as the International Committee of the Red Cross and various United Nations agencies. The 19th century brought major political changes to Switzerland. In 1798, during the French Revolutionary Wars, French troops invaded and established the Helvetic Republic, a centralized state that replaced the loose confederation of cantons. This system was unpopular with many Swiss, who were accustomed to strong local autonomy, and resistance was widespread. After years of political instability and shifting alliances, the Act of Mediation in 1803, issued by Napoleon Bonaparte, restored a federal structure, though with France still exerting considerable influence. Following Napoleon's defeat, the Congress of Vienna in 1815 confirmed Switzerland's independence and, importantly, recognized its permanent neutrality. The new federal pact maintained significant autonomy for the cantons, but created a looser national framework, one that would eventually be tested by internal conflict. In 1847, tensions between conservative Catholic cantons and more liberal Protestant cantons led to the Sonderbund War. This brief but decisive conflict lasted less than a month and resulted in victory for the federal forces. The outcome paved the way for a new constitution in 1848, which transformed Switzerland into a federal state with a stronger central government, while still preserving cantonal autonomy. The constitution established many of the political institutions that exist today, including the Federal Council, the bicameral parliament, and the foundation for the system of direct democracy. Amendments in 1874 further expanded federal powers, particularly in areas like military organization and trade regulation. During the 20th century, Switzerland remained neutral in both World War I and World War II, although its economy and politics were affected by the surrounding conflicts. In World War II, the country mobilized its military to defend its borders and maintained a complex position, trading with both Allied and Axis powers while also providing refuge to some, though not all, of those fleeing persecution. After the war, Switzerland's neutrality and stability made it an attractive location for international organizations, including the European headquarters of the United Nations in Geneva. In the post-war era, Switzerland experienced rapid economic growth, becoming one of the world's wealthiest nations. It joined various international organizations, but remained outside both the European Union and NATO, maintaining close economic ties with the EU through bilateral agreements. In 2002, after a national referendum, Switzerland became a member of the United Nations, marking a significant step in its international engagement while still upholding its policy of neutrality. In the early 21st century, Switzerland has continued to balance its strong tradition of independence with the realities of an interconnected world. While remaining outside the European Union, the country has maintained a close relationship through a series of bilateral agreements, covering trade, transport, research cooperation, and the movement of people. These agreements give Switzerland access to many aspects of the EU's single market, while allowing it to retain control over domestic legislation, though the arrangement is often the subject of political debate within the country. Switzerland's system of direct democracy continues to shape its political life, with national referendums held several times a year. Topics in recent decades have included immigration policy, environmental regulations, pension reforms, and foreign policy decisions. Some of these votes have had international implications, such as the 2014 referendum that narrowly approved limits on immigration from EU countries, prompting a period of tense negotiations with Brussels. The country's role as a host for diplomacy and international cooperation remains important. Geneva is home to numerous international organizations, including the World Health Organization, the International Labour Organization, and the International Committee of the Red Cross. Switzerland has also played a role in hosting peace talks and mediating conflicts, drawing on its reputation for neutrality and stability. Economically, Switzerland has maintained its position as one of the world's most competitive and innovative economies, with strong sectors in banking, pharmaceuticals, precision manufacturing, and tourism. At the same time, it has faced challenges related to its financial sector's traditional emphasis on banking secrecy, which has come under increasing pressure from international tax transparency initiatives. Reforms in recent years have reduced the level of secrecy once associated with Swiss banks, bringing them more in line with global standards. Environmental concerns have also grown in importance. Switzerland's alpine glaciers are retreating due to climate change, threatening water supplies, ecosystems, and tourism in certain regions. The country has responded with measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and promote renewable energy, though balancing these goals with economic interests remains a challenge. In recent years, Switzerland has also navigated the COVID-19 pandemic, introducing measures to protect public health while aiming to minimize economic disruption. Its vaccination campaign and healthcare system allowed for a relatively strong recovery, but the experience sparked debate about the balance between federal and cantonal responsibilities in times of crisis. Today, Switzerland continues to be known for its political stability, high living standards, and distinctive place in Europe. Closely connected to its neighbors, yet steadfastly independent in shaping its own path. Switzerland's geography is dominated by mountains, with the Alps covering the southern and eastern parts of the country and the Jura Mountains lying to the northwest. Between these two ranges is the Swiss Plateau, a broad stretch of relatively flatter land that contains many of the country's largest cities, including Zurich, Geneva, and Bern. This varied topography has a strong influence on the climate, which can differ greatly over short distances. The alpine regions have a high mountain climate with cold, snowy winters and short, mild summers. Snowfall is common at higher altitudes from late autumn to spring, supporting the winter sports industry that is so important to many mountain communities. In contrast, the Swiss plateau has a more moderate climate, with warmer summers, cooler winters, and more even precipitation throughout the year. In the far south, particularly in the canton of Ticino and parts of the southern valleys, the climate is influenced by the Mediterranean, with milder winters and warmer summers. These areas can support plants such as palm trees, and they often experience more sunshine than the rest of the country. Switzerland's position in the heart of Europe means it is exposed to different weather systems. Moist Atlantic air from the west, colder continental air from the east, and warmer Mediterranean air from the south. The meeting of these systems can bring rapid changes in weather, especially in mountainous areas where conditions can shift in a matter of hours. Glaciers remain an important part of the Swiss landscape, though many are shrinking due to rising global temperatures. They act as reservoirs, feeding rivers that flow into three major European drainage basins: the North Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Black Sea, making Switzerland a vital source of freshwater for much of the continent. This combination of mountains, valleys, lakes, and rivers, all within a relatively small area, is central to Switzerland's identity. It shapes how people live, where they settle, what industries thrive, and even how the country connects internally and with its neighbors. Switzerland's economy is among the most stable and prosperous in the world, built on a combination of highly developed industries, a strong service sector, and a well-educated workforce. It consistently ranks near the top in measures of competitiveness, innovation, and productivity. Although the country is small in both land area and population, it plays a significant role in the global economy. The financial sector is one of the best-known aspects of the Swiss economy. Zurich and Geneva are both major international banking centers, hosting a mix of large institutions and specialized private banks. For many decades, Swiss banking was associated with strict secrecy, But in recent years, transparency requirements have increased, bringing the system closer to global standards. Financial services now emphasize wealth management, investment advice, and insurance, with Switzerland also hosting the headquarters of major reinsurance companies. Manufacturing in Switzerland is focused on high-value, precision products rather than mass production. The country is famous for its watchmaking industry, which produces everything from luxury timepieces to highly technical instruments. Precision engineering and machinery are other strengths, supplying equipment for industries ranging from medical technology to aerospace. The pharmaceutical and chemical sectors are also central to the Swiss economy, with global companies based in cities like Basel. These firms develop and produce medicines, diagnostics, and life science products that are exported worldwide. In addition, Switzerland is home to important food and beverage producers, with multinational companies in the chocolate, coffee, and packaged food industries. Agriculture plays a smaller role in terms of GDP, but it remains culturally significant. Farming in Switzerland is shaped by the mountainous terrain, with dairy production and alpine pasturing central in many regions. This supports the production of cheeses such as Emmental, Gruyere, and Appenzeller, as well as other regional specialties. Tourism is another key sector, with visitors coming year-round. Winter brings skiers and snowboarders to the Alps, while summer attracts hikers, cyclists, and those seeking lake and mountain scenery. The country's reputation for efficiency, cleanliness, and safety supports its appeal, although the high cost of living can make it an expensive destination. Switzerland's economy is highly export-oriented, with strong trading relationships across Europe and beyond. Its political stability, reliable infrastructure, and skilled workforce help maintain its position as a leading economy, even in the face of global challenges. Switzerland's population is divided between modern urban centers and smaller rural communities, and the contrast between these environments is a defining feature of the country. Around 3/4 of the population live in urban areas, but because Switzerland's cities are relatively small by international standards, urban here often means compact, well-connected towns as much as it does large metropolitan regions. The largest urban areas, such as Zurich, Geneva, Basel, Lausanne, and Bern, concentrate much of the country's economic activity, political life, and cultural institutions. These cities have efficient public transport, dense networks of businesses, and a steady flow of international visitors. They are also home to universities, research centers, and many of Switzerland's leading industries, from finance and pharmaceuticals to technology and diplomacy. Rural Switzerland, by contrast, is characterized by smaller towns, villages, and scattered farms. In the lowland parts of the Swiss plateau, agriculture is relatively intensive, with a focus on dairy, crop cultivation, and horticulture. In the alpine regions, rural life often revolves around seasonal patterns: summer pasturing of cattle in the high meadows, winter work in forestry or tourism, and a slower pace shaped by geography and climate. The difference between urban and rural areas is not only economic, but also cultural. Rural communities tend to preserve local traditions, dialects, and customs more strongly, while cities are more linguistically and culturally diverse due to immigration and international connections. The federal structure of Switzerland helps maintain a balance between these areas, giving rural cantons significant influence in national politics despite their smaller populations. Transport links between rural and urban areas are highly developed, with railways, buses, and well-maintained roads ensuring that even remote alpine villages are accessible year-round. This connectivity allows rural residents to commute to urban jobs and makes it possible for city dwellers to reach the mountains and countryside quickly for recreation. This combination of accessible urban hubs and well-preserved rural landscapes is central to Switzerland's identity, offering both the economic advantages of modern cities and the cultural depth of small, close-knit communities. Switzerland's culture is shaped by its linguistic diversity, its long history of local autonomy, and its position at the crossroads of Europe. The country is not defined by a single dominant cultural tradition, but rather by a coexistence of several, each with its own language, customs, and influences. In the German-speaking regions, cultural life is influenced by traditions from neighboring Germany and Austria, while the French-speaking areas share elements with France, and the Italian-speaking canton of Ticino reflects northern Italian heritage. The Romansh-speaking communities in the canton of Graubünden preserve their own unique traditions, linked to the alpine environment and centuries-old practices. Despite these differences, there is a strong shared sense of Swiss identity, built around values such as political neutrality, local self-governance, and respect for order and precision. The federal structure means that many aspects of daily life, from education to public holidays, are determined at the cantonal level, and traditions can vary widely from one part of the country to another. Swiss society places a high value on community participation and civic responsibility. Voter turnout in referendums and elections is generally high compared to many other countries, reflecting the public's role in direct democracy. Social trust is strong, supported by a well-functioning legal system, low crime rates, and a high standard of public services. Cultural life includes a mixture of international and local influences. Switzerland has a rich tradition of festivals, from the Basel Carnival and the Montreux Jazz Festival to alpine events celebrating seasonal changes, such as the Alpabzug, when cattle are brought down from the mountain pastures in autumn, decorated with flowers and large bells. Food culture also reflects regional variety. Cheese plays a central role, with fondue and raclette as well-known national dishes, while each linguistic region also has its own specialties, from Zürcher Geschnetzelts in the German-speaking area to Papet Vaudois in the French-speaking West and polenta in Ticino. Swiss chocolate enjoys an international reputation, with both large producers and artisanal makers contributing to its fame. Multilingualism is a natural part of life in Switzerland. While most people use their regional language in daily life, many also speak one or more of the other national languages, as well as English, particularly in urban and professional settings. This linguistic adaptability reflects the country's openness to international trade, diplomacy, and tourism, while still keeping strong ties to local culture. Let's talk about traveling to Switzerland. Switzerland is widely regarded as one of the safest countries in the world for travelers. Violent crime is rare, and petty crime such as pickpocketing occurs mainly in crowded tourist areas or on public transport in larger cities. Public spaces are generally clean and well-maintained, and the infrastructure is reliable, which reduces many of the risks travelers might encounter elsewhere. Emergency services are efficient, and healthcare facilities are of a high standard, though medical treatment can be expensive for those without adequate insurance. The country's safety record extends to transport. Roads are well maintained, and rail services are punctual and regular. Mountain travel, whether by train, car, or on foot, is supported by clear signage and safety measures, though the terrain itself can still be challenging. Visitors to alpine areas are advised to check weather forecasts carefully, as conditions can change quickly, and to follow marked trails when hiking. In terms of costs, Switzerland is known for being expensive compared to many other destinations. Accommodation, food, and transport can be costly, especially in major cities and popular tourist areas. A simple meal in a restaurant can cost significantly more than in most European countries, and hotel prices reflect the high standard of service and maintenance. However, quality is generally consistent, and travelers often find that public transport, while not cheap, offers excellent value for its efficiency and coverage. For those on a budget, it is possible to reduce costs by using supermarkets for prepared meals, staying in hostels or smaller guest houses, and making use of travel passes that provide unlimited train, bus, and boat travel for a set period. Even so, visitors should be prepared for prices that reflect Switzerland's high cost of living. While the combination of safety, cleanliness, and reliable infrastructure makes Switzerland a comfortable place to visit, travelers should plan their budget accordingly to enjoy the country without unexpected expenses. Switzerland is well connected to the rest of Europe and to many destinations worldwide, despite having no coastline and therefore no seaports. International travel into the country is most often by air or by rail. The country's main international airports are located in Zurich, Geneva, and Basel. Zurich Airport in the northeast is the largest and busiest, serving as a major hub with direct flights to cities across Europe, North America, Asia, and the Middle East. Geneva Airport, in the west near the French border, has strong connections to European capitals and also serves long-haul routes. Basel, Mulhouse Airport is jointly operated by Switzerland and France and provides access to the northwestern part of the country. Smaller airports, such as Bern and Lugano, handle mainly regional flights. For travelers already in Europe, arriving by train is a convenient and often scenic option. Switzerland's rail network is integrated with those of its neighbors, making it possible to travel directly from cities such as Paris, Milan, Munich, and Vienna without changing trains. High-speed services like the TGV Lyria connect Paris to Geneva, Lausanne, and Zurich in just a few hours, while Eurocity trains link Switzerland to Italy and Germany through the Alpine tunnels and mountain passes. Road access is equally straightforward. Switzerland shares borders with 5 countries, France, Germany, Austria, Liechtenstein, and Italy, and has well-maintained motorway links to all of them. Drivers entering Switzerland must purchase a motorway vignette, a pass valid for a calendar year, which allows use of the national motorway system. Once inside the country, connections between airports, train stations, and city centers are smooth and reliable, with frequent services and short transfer times. The combination of airports, high-speed rail, and well-maintained roads means that reaching Switzerland is relatively simple, whether coming from nearby European countries or from further abroad. Switzerland is a member of the Schengen area, which means that it follows the common visa policy shared by most European countries in that group. Citizens of other Schengen countries, as well as many non-Schengen nations including the United States, Canada, Australia, Japan, and the United Kingdom, can enter Switzerland without a visa for short stays of up to 90 days within a 180-day period. This allowance covers tourism, business trips, and short family visits, but it does not permit paid work. Travelers from countries that require a visa must apply for a Schengen visa before arriving. This visa allows entry into Switzerland and also into the other Schengen countries, as long as the total stay does not exceed the permitted time limit. The application process usually involves providing proof of accommodation, return travel, sufficient financial means, and travel insurance that covers medical emergencies. For longer stays, such as for employment, study, or family reunification, separate permits are required. These permits are issued by the cantonal authorities, and the specific requirements can vary depending on the purpose of the stay, the applicant's nationality, and the canton where they intend to live. At the border, travelers should carry a valid passport or, for EU and EFTA citizens, a national identity card. Even though internal border controls within the Schengen area are generally minimal, officials may carry out spot checks. It is therefore important to have proper identification available at all times when traveling in Switzerland. Because Switzerland is not part of the European Union, some regulations, such as customs allowances for goods brought into the country, differ from those in neighboring EU states. Visitors should be aware of limits on items like alcohol, tobacco, and certain foods, and be prepared to declare goods that exceed these limits when entering. The best time to visit Switzerland depends largely on what you want to do while you are there, as the seasons bring very different conditions and activities. The country's varied geography means that weather and climate can change not only by season, but also by region and altitude. So timing your visit with your interests in mind can make a big difference. For winter sports, the main season runs from December to March. During this time, the alpine resorts are at their busiest, offering skiing, snowboarding, and other snow-related activities. Higher altitude resorts often have good snow conditions into April, while lower slopes may see shorter seasons depending on weather. This is also the most expensive period for accommodation in the mountains, especially around Christmas, New Year, and school holidays. Spring, from April to early June, brings milder temperatures in the lowlands and the gradual melting of snow in the mountains. This is a good time for sightseeing in cities and for hiking in lower altitude areas, though some high-altitude hiking trails and mountain passes may still be closed until early summer. Wildflowers bloom in many valleys during this season, adding color to the landscape. Summer, from June to September, is the peak season for hiking, cycling, and exploring Switzerland's lakes and mountains without snow. The weather is generally warm, especially in the lowlands, but can be cooler at higher elevations. This is also the best time for scenic train journeys and access to mountain passes, as most are open and free of snow. Summer tends to be busy in tourist areas, and accommodation prices reflect the demand. Autumn, from late September to November, brings cooler weather and fewer crowds. The changing colors of the forests and vineyards create a different kind of scenic beauty. Early autumn can still be warm and pleasant, while late autumn can be chilly, especially in the mountains, with the first snowfalls often arriving by November. Overall, Switzerland offers something in every season, but the right time to visit will depend on whether your plans are focused on winter sports, summer hiking, or simply enjoying the landscapes and cities in more moderate weather. Switzerland's tourism is shaped by its natural landscapes, historical cities, and efficient transport network, making it easy for visitors to experience a wide variety of places even on a relatively short trip. Some destinations are well known internationally, while others attract visitors mainly from neighboring countries or those with more time to explore. In the west, Geneva sits at the edge of Lake Geneva, close to the French border. It is known for its role in diplomacy, hosting many international organizations, but it also offers lakeside promenades, museums, and views of the surrounding Alps and Jura Mountains. Along the same lake, Lausanne combines an old town with steep streets and a waterfront area in Auchi, and it is home to the Olympic Museum. The city of Zurich in the north is Switzerland's largest urban center and an important financial hub. It offers a mix of historic architecture, art galleries, and access to Lake Zurich, with the mountains visible in the distance. Basel, on the Rhine in the northwest, has a well-preserved old town, a large number of museums, and a location at the meeting point of Switzerland, France, and Germany. In the mountains, Zermatt is one of the most famous resorts, lying at the foot of the Matterhorn. It is car-free and accessible by train, offering skiing almost year-round and hiking trails in summer. St. Moritz in the Engadin Valley is another well-known luxury resort, associated with both winter sports and summer outdoor activities. Interlaken, between Lakes Thun and Brienz, serves as a base for excursions into the Bernese Oberland, with access to the Jungfrau region. Other notable spots include Lucerne, with its medieval old town, covered wooden bridges, and location by the lake surrounded by mountains and Montreux, known for its mild climate, lake views, and annual jazz festival. For scenic journeys, the Glacier Express and Bernina Express offer routes through some of the country's most striking landscapes. Beyond the most visited destinations, Switzerland has many smaller towns and rural areas that attract those looking for quieter experiences, such as Appenzell with its traditional houses and customs, or the vineyards of Lavaux along Lake Geneva. Each region has its own character, shaped by language, history, and geography, offering variety within a relatively small country. Swiss cuisine reflects the country's regional diversity, with influences from German, French, and Italian culinary traditions, as well as its own distinct Alpine heritage. Certain dishes have become symbols of the country as a whole, while others are more closely associated with specific cantons or linguistic regions. Two of the most famous Swiss dishes are cheese fondue and raclette. Cheese fondue consists of melted cheese, often a mixture of varieties such as Gruyere and Emmental, served in a shared pot and eaten by dipping pieces of bread into it using long forks. Raclette involves heating a block of cheese and scraping the melted portion onto potatoes, pickles, and other accompaniments. Both are traditionally associated with alpine regions and are popular in the colder months, although they are available year-round in many restaurants. Other well-known dishes include rösti, a grated potato dish fried until crisp, which originated in the German-speaking part of the country but is now enjoyed nationwide. In Ticino, the Italian-speaking canton, polenta and risotto are common, often served with meat stews. In the French-speaking areas, dishes such as papet vaudois, a combination of leeks, potatoes, and sausage, reflect local tastes. Switzerland is also renowned for its chocolate, which has been produced commercially since the 19th century. Swiss chocolatiers were pioneers in techniques such as milk chocolate and conching, and the country remains home to both large international brands and small artisanal makers. Swiss chocolate is widely available, from supermarkets to specialized shops, and is a popular souvenir for visitors. Bakery traditions are strong as well, with regional breads, pastries, and cakes found throughout the country. In Basel, Basler Leckerli, a spiced biscuit with honey and nuts, is a local specialty, while in Graubünden Nusstorte, a nut-filled pastry, is well known. When it comes to drinks, Swiss wines, particularly from the cantons of Valais, Vaud, and Ticino, are often consumed locally rather than exported. White wines made from the Chasselas grape are common in the West, while red wines from Pinot Noir and Merlot are produced in various regions. Beer is also popular, with a growing number of small breweries alongside larger national brands. In alpine areas, fruit brandies such as Kirsch are traditional. Overall, Swiss food and drink combine regional variety with a strong emphasis on quality ingredients, often sourced locally. For travelers, sampling dishes from different parts of the country offers a way to experience its cultural diversity through taste. Switzerland has a number of unusual and interesting characteristics that go beyond its well-known mountains and reputation for precision. Some of these facts are rooted in its history, while others reflect modern choices or quirks of everyday life. One notable fact is that Switzerland has not been involved in a foreign war since the early 19th century, maintaining a policy of neutrality for over 200 years. Despite this, it still has compulsory military service for male citizens, and the Swiss Army is known for being well prepared to operate in mountainous terrain. The military even maintains mountain fortifications and hidden bunkers, some of which have been converted into museums or storage facilities in recent decades. Switzerland is also home to the world's oldest still operating humanitarian organization, the International Committee of the Red Cross, founded in Geneva in 1863. Its emblem, a red cross on a white background, is the reverse of the Swiss flag, chosen to honor the country where it began. Another curious detail is that Switzerland has more than 1,500 lakes, meaning you are never more than about 16 kilometers from a lake anywhere in the country. Many of these lakes are glacial in origin and have strikingly clear water, often with a distinctive blue or green color. In the area of innovation, Switzerland has produced many important inventions. The Swiss Army knife, developed in the late 19th century, is perhaps the most famous, but other notable contributions include the Velcro fastening system, cellophane, and even aluminium foil. Swiss engineers and scientists have also played major roles in fields such as pharmaceuticals, watchmaking, and particle physics, the latter represented by the CERN research facility near Geneva. Switzerland is also unusual in having 4 national languages: German, French, Italian, and Romansh, and in providing government services and official documents in at least the first 3 of these. Crossing from one linguistic region to another can feel like entering a different country, even though the political and economic systems remain the same. When it comes to sports, Switzerland is best known for skiing, snowboarding, and other winter activities, but it has also produced champions in tennis, cycling, and mountaineering. Roger Federer, one of the most successful tennis players in history, is among the country's most famous athletes. Switzerland has hosted the Winter Olympics twice, in St. Moritz in 1928 and again in 1948. Finally, there is a quiet but distinctive feature of Swiss daily life. The country is known for its punctuality, not only in trains and public transport, but in meetings, appointments, and social arrangements. This cultural emphasis on timekeeping is often noted by visitors and is one of the traits most closely associated with the Swiss national character. Switzerland is a small country in size, but one with a striking variety of landscapes, languages, and traditions. Its position in the center of Europe, surrounded by 5 neighbors, has shaped its history as both a crossroads and a place apart. The mountains, lakes, and valleys define not only the scenery but also the way people live, influencing settlement patterns, transport, and even the foods that are most common in each region. From its gradual emergence as a confederation of self-governing communities to its modern role as a wealthy, stable state known for neutrality, Switzerland's history is one of balancing independence with cooperation. The political system, with its mix of federalism and direct democracy, reflects this balance and has helped maintain stability through centuries of change. In daily life, Switzerland combines the modern and the traditional. Its cities are centers of finance, research, and international diplomacy, while its rural areas preserve farming practices and cultural events that have been part of local life for generations. The linguistic and cultural diversity is not just a point of interest for visitors, but a lived reality for the Swiss themselves, woven into education, media, and governance. For travelers, Switzerland offers a high level of safety, well-developed infrastructure, and access to landscapes ranging from snow-covered peaks to vineyard-covered slopes. It can be an expensive destination, but its reliability and efficiency make it easy to explore, whether by train, boat, or on foot. In the end, Switzerland is a country that values precision and order, but also cherishes its regional variety. It is both deeply rooted in its past and engaged with the wider world, quietly maintaining its place as a stable and distinctive part of Europe. If you have enjoyed this slow journey through Switzerland, and you would like to hear more about other countries told in the same way, you can like this episode, subscribe to the channel, or follow along for future episodes. Every country has its own story, and over time we will visit them all, one by one.